Silver, thanks for joining me today.
Delighted to be with you, Aaron.
So on Sunday there was a handshake agreement, an announcement that a budget deal was reached. Monday, budget subcommittees were closed down, but yet there's still a lot of details that are not filled in yet. Why not come to an agreement on a complete plan rather than this definitive framework?
Well, one of the things we've put in this process is an open and public discussion of the issues by members. So the agreement talks about some basic agreement, and the agreement talks about how much money would be attributed to each of the areas. It is still up to the rank and file members to have that public discussion about the relative merits and demerits of various programs within their subject areas. So that's what's happening. 8 of the 9 subcommittees, or actually 9 of 10, have closed down. Health still has a few points out there. It's a very complex area, and hopefully they will be concluding their discussions today, and that will conclude the legislative reaction to the governor's proposed budget.
So, but it's still sort of unfair to say there's a deal when health isn't closed down and even the school runs haven't been decided on the amount of money that will go to each school district.
No, the amount of money has not. The formula has been decided upon, and that the amount of money that funds that formula with the changes has now been agreed upon. That will go in to the State Department of Education, and they will by computer factor in the factors that go into the formula and produce a school aid run. It takes about 24 to 36 hours to actually produce that school aid run with the exact numbers based on the formula that's agreed on and the amount of money that's agreed on. So that's in the works right now. It's in the process. That is basically closed down. All the inputting has been done, and it's now the result that has to come out in order for that to be completed, and that result should come out either late tonight or early tomorrow morning.
It's been reported that you had to urge your members to agree to this budget deal. Is that what happened?
Oh, well, this budget deal, we are missing $7 billion in federal funds from last year. We are therefore not purring. The economy is not producing what people thought it could produce in a recovery. And we have to take the economics, make sure, I told my members, we don't want to come back and deal with deficits in September and October, November and December. That we want to put a budget in place that sticks in place that people can count on. And we were able to get significant restorations in areas that were important to my conference. I think we've done very well in the area of human services, in the area of restoring education aid, in the area of restoring things like senior citizen centers that were initially cut. And I explained to them very clearly that the numbers will not get better in April, May, or June, and that the best deal we could cut is right now. We make significant restorations in our priorities, and that's why I suggested we go forward with it. And the conference, by and large, has agreed with me.
Was there a lot of pushback before you got that agreement, though?
I don't think so. I think they looked at the reality. We've been going all along. We have conferences on a regular basis. They understand the realities of the economy. They understand that certain senators would rather allow millionaires a tax cut and cause a teacher in certain districts to be laid off in order to preserve that tax cut for the wealthiest New Yorkers, and that we couldn't change that philosophy that existed in the state Senate.
You are known as a very patient negotiator who usually takes your time to get what you and your conference want, things that are of concern to you. This year, the governor used a method of threat of his extenders, forcing an emergency vote that included his budget in it, a method, kind of created by Governor Patterson to get his plan passed. Now, how much did that factor into getting an early agreement?
I think what was important is what factored into getting an early agreement was the state of the economy, the ability to get the priorities of my conference back into this budget, to reverse the cuts that the governor proposed, and at some point, as any good card player will tell you, you have to know when to hold and when you think you have a winner.
So this was a factor, though.
So it's not a matter of a factor. It was the economy wasn't getting better. There weren't going to be any new surge of revenues in the next few weeks that would say there is more money to better fill the holes that we attempted to fill. Let's be understanding that we spent more money this year, state money, than we did last year. That what's missing from this budget is federal money that we had last year and the year before. Health care is significantly increased in our budget. What's missing is significant amount of federal dollars that were available to us last year that we appropriated. Education will wind up being almost flat from last year, not a $1.5 billion cut, but we're missing $1.3 billion in federal money that went to our school districts last year. That's where the cuts are. We proposed a method to fill those holes. The Senate rejected it. As I say again, they'd rather the children in the classrooms be in classes of 40, that teachers get laid off, than some person making over $1 million a year, or $1 billion for that matter, should not be charged a little more money. They should have a tax cut from last year, pay less in taxes, rather than hire that teacher.
There's no doubt, though, that a precedent has been set with the governor's use or threat of use of an extender. And how will this affect budget negotiations moving forward? I mean, it severely increases or decreases the legislature's power to negotiate.
Those uses have not been fully tested as to the appropriateness of them.
So you would be willing to challenge?
I didn't say I'm willing to challenge. Some innocent child somewhere who was deprived of something might be willing to challenge the governor's use of power somewhere down the line. There is not a clear-cut definition of what's what, but that's not to be, that's not the discussion for this year. There are significant limitations on what a governor can do in appropriation language. Can a governor impose a death penalty when he appropriates money for the state police? That may very well be a question that ultimately will come to the Court of Appeals of this state as to what the ability of a governor to do that will be. I mean, to do substantive law change with appropriation language, and how far a governor can go. There's no question the governor can do it in relation to an appropriation. How far he can go with it still remains to be seen.
All right, so I guess we're going to have to see if something comes out of that. In a New York Times article today, one of the members of your conference basically called this budget agreement a surrender. Would you consider this a surrender?
I don't consider it a surrender at all, and it's unfortunate that whoever that member of the conference may be would classify his colleagues who worked so hard to make the necessary restorations that were successful. And let's be real, we took care of victims of medical malpractice by eliminating the governor's caps that he had proposed. We took care of children in classrooms by increasing education aid by several $100 million across the state. We took care of blind and deaf students by restoring the governor's cut to 4201 blind and deaf schools. We took care of senior citizens by restoring the cuts to senior citizens in the Title 20 program, restored daycare at the state, the city universities, as well as daycare programs throughout the state. These were priorities of our conference. These were successes of our conference. If some member of the conference has a distorted view of what they may individually have wanted to happen, that's unfortunate for that individual. It is not the consensus of our conference.
Yeah, you're pointing to these substantive things in the budget that have come out of the budget, but no doubt in every budget process, the talk turns to political. In the past, you've been referred to as the shadow governor, and now with Governor Cuomo in office, people are saying that you are now in the shadows. What is your response to comments like that imply that with Cuomo in office, your powers are weakened?
I have no response to that because there's no response that's necessary. On day one, I said we'll work with the governor. He's a Democratic governor. He has vision. I supported his candidacy. As a matter of fact, I announced his candidacy one day before he did. So he has been someone who I have been familiar with for a long time. I've been acquainted with him. We've worked together when he was the Attorney General. And I said our conference will work with this governor to do the right things for this state. He inherited a very difficult economic situation. We worked with the governor in order to overcome that. We felt that in certain areas the governor made cuts that were unnecessary, that were not appropriate. We made the restorations at the negotiating table. This is not a wrestling match. This is not an issue of power. This is an issue of, if anything, if you want to compare it to a wrestling match, it's probably more like a tag team, Democrats against Republicans. And clearly the Democratic team put their vision out there this year, and the governor and the Democratic legislators clearly, if there's a wrestling match, they want it.
So this is the beginning of a new Albany, as the governor said on Sunday, where we're going to see more working together, things getting pushed through quicker.
Yeah, I think so, and I welcome it. I'd like to see it, and I'd like to see it continue. I think the members of both houses of the legislature on both sides of the aisle do an inordinate amount of work, spend a lot of time doing it. They are talented people, and the resources that come from them get pushed up into this process, and it is an amazing process when we use those resources of the individual legislators who are hardworking in order to make the process work.
Well, Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, thanks